Hey, Kurt Crawley reporting, special report, remembering the legacy of the great Hank Gathers of Loyola Marymount University. You'll be reading a lot of retrospectives. ESPN's done a 30 for 30 piece in the past, and it's hard to believe it's been 25 years since Hank tragically died during a West Coast Conference tournament game at Gersten Pavilion. Hank Gathers was born February 11, 1967. He and his good friend Bo Kimball starred at Dobbins Tech in Philadelphia, and they were part of a recruiting class brought west to USC along with a couple other players by Coach Stan Morrison at the time. There would soon be a coaching change. Gathers and Kimball would end up matriculating to Loyola Marymount, coached by Paul Westhead, initially famous for as being coach of the Lakers when Magic Johnson was early in his career. Led the Lakers to a championship. Wound up coaching Loyola Marymount. Uh, 3 magical years. Hank and Bo, Jeff Fryer, shooting guard, 3-point specialist. Remember a guy named Peabody would run all over the place. He'll jump into the fourth row to get a ball for you. 88, stunning upset, first round NCAA tournament, beat Wyoming, as I recall. Repeated back in the tournament 89 and 1990 senior season. Both Gathers and Kimball were billed as NBA prospects, but Gathers had collapsed shooting free throws early that season. Cleared to play later on, played the rest of the regular season without incident. And it was a fast break offense that had not been seen before since in college basketball. The over-under of LMU games is about 220, 110, 120. They played a little university in the San Diego area, U.S. International. They put like 170, 171 on them once. It was fun to watch. It got to the point CBS gave them publicity, put them on several national games. One in particular, I remember they played Dale Brown's LSU squad. Had a raw but promising freshman center named Shaquille O'Neal. It was something like a 140 to 136 game, or I don't know the exact score, but it was fun to watch. That fateful night, Sunday night, March 4th, 1990, they played University of Portland in the semifinal. And Terrell Lowry, who was a freshman point guard at the time, later became a Major League Baseball player. Threw up an alley-oop. Hank brought it down. Crowd went crazy. LMU's up 25-13. I remember hearing the radio broadcasts of it, and all of a sudden the crowd's going nuts, and all of a sudden you hear 3,000 people suddenly went, and I remember the commentator said Hank just collapsed, and that's what happened. It's a picture from it. It looked like he was going to get up. Looked like might be fine again. He might dodge another bullet, but he would soon convulse, and moments later was lifeless. The school had invested in a defibrillator after the first episode, which they did not use on the court. They elected to stretcher him off to the locker room area where they tried to revive him there, and it kind of got run through the legal system why they did not use the defibrillator on the court. It was unfortunate that it turned in that direction. Hank Gathers arrived at the hospital 5:38 p.m. I remembered I ran errands that night and got home, clicked on my car radio, the Joe McDonald show on KFI radio in Los Angeles, and he delivered the breaking and just unbelievable news that we had lost Hank Gathers. And there's so many different angles to some of the individuals involved. Turned out point guard for Portland, for the Portland Pilots at the time, Eric Spoelstra, now the Miami Heat coach. Um, like I said, Terrell Lowry went on into Major League Baseball, journeyman outfielder for several teams. Bo Kimble would be drafted top 10 by the Los Angeles Clippers. You know, had a few years in the NBA, but what was most memorable was what happened after that night. The funeral was 3 days later. And I remember that day it was covered to death by ESPN and other outlets. And in the service in Gersten Pavilion, Bo Kimble asked the mourners to cheer Hank one last time. And suddenly it sounded like there was a game going on. That was how loud the crowd cheered. It was like Gathers had just delivered another thunderous slam dunk. It was amazing. They did not know the tournament was obviously canceled in the aftermath of Gathers collapsing. They would be given an NCAA tournament bid, and they first decided whether they wanted to play again. Of course they would. But you had the mourning process, and then the team got back into business, practicing 11 days to get ready for their first game. They were seeded, despite being in the top 25 all year, they were seeded 11th in the West Regional, but their first two games were in Long Beach, so they got to play close to home. And they stunned New Mexico State, and then Steve Fisher's University of Michigan squad. And of course, Fisher this day coaches San Diego State, and they beat Michigan, defending champions, convincingly. Went through the regionals in Oakland, played University of Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama played them, they slowed it down on them. It was kind of like a 62-60 game, but LMU won, and they ultimately were blown out in the regional final by eventual champion Jerry Tarkanian's UNLV squad, one of the great teams of that era. And Bo Kimble, the most memorable moments, there he is. There's the number, note the number 44 patch. He shot his free throws, first free throws of every tournament game, left-handed because Hank Gathers is not a great foul shooter. He experimented shooting free throws left-handed. That was that was Bo Kimble's tribute, and I believe he made every one of them, all 4 games. He made that first free throw and subsequent free throws that game. In the first game in New Mexico State, Kimble had 4 fouls in like the first 10 minutes. And Westhead kept him in there. I said if he's going to foul out in 10 minutes, Westhead was all in. Kimble amazingly didn't fall out, and LMU went on to win that game. It's just truly magical. One of the most magical NCAA tournaments. Anyways, here's Hank in their powder blue, kind of maroonish school colors, crimson. There's a screenshot of Kimble, left-handed free throw. Sports Illustrated headline. Sports Illustrated cover. Hinkin Bowl, Dobbins Tech, Philadelphia. Kind of spread on, don't know what magazine that was. Hink and his mother embracing him. I want to say I was senior night. Kimball to your left, Hink to your right. And the Today Show. Loyola Marymount team. There they are. I said the whole team was memorable, not just Hink, not just Bo. And finally, dedication, Hink Gathers Recreation Center. You know, it's hard to believe it's 25 years later. I don't think LMU has even been back to the NCAA tournament. They're a perennial bottom feeder in the West Coast Conference. Obviously, Gonzaga, St. Mary's dominates that conference now. And it's 25 years ago goes by quick. The students there obviously weren't around when Hink Gathers was there. Obviously, he's remembered. He has banners in the gym at Gersten Pavilion. But I mean, take some time this week to remember the legacy of Hink Gathers. Feel free to make your comments, your memories below on Hink's all too short life. Again, it's Kurt Crowley reporting, and Hink Gathers, he'll always be with us.